Ashley was laughing about my cute little government job when Air Force One flew over our backyard. One moment I was getting mocked for bringing store brand soda to Thanksgiving. The next, I was activating a restricted perimeter, ordering National Guard choppers into formation and securing the landing site for the President of the United States, right in front of the sister who thought I filed paperwork for a living. She had no idea, none of them did, but by the time that plane touched down, I wasn't just Claire the quiet one anymore. I was Major Claire Morgan, and they finally knew it. I stood on the front steps of my childhood home, a store brand soda pack sweating in one hand, my other hand hovering near the doorknob like it might bite me. The house hadn't changed, same faded wreath, same cracked tile on the porch. But somehow every year I returned it felt smaller, tighter, like the walls were closing in the second I crossed the threshold. Inside, the air was warm, with oven heat cinnamon candles and the sound of overlapping voices. Ashley's voice was the loudest as usual. She was already mid-laugh when I walked in. "There she is," she chirped. "Claire's here, and she brought her usual government mystery laughter." Just a few chuckles, but enough to make my face burn. Mom appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a floral dish towel. "Well, it's good to see you, honey. I was just telling Ashley, it's nice you have something stable. Government jobs come with benefits, right? That was my welcome. Not we missed you. Not tell us about your work overseas. Just benefits." I forced a smile. "Yeah, health insurance and everything." They couldn't know that 3 weeks ago I was coordinating a multinational medevac during a sandstorm in Jordan. That my uniform wasn't cute, it was classified. That I hadn't unpacked because I wasn't planning to stay long. Not emotionally, anyway. Ashley led me into the dining room where the table was decked out like something from a fall issue of Southern Living. Homemade place cards, mason jar centerpieces. Her cranberry sauce had a chalkboard label. Everyone cooed. I set my soda next to the wine. No one looked twice. "Still single, Claire Jeremy," my cousin smirked from the couch. "Or does the government not allow romance?" I gave a polite laugh. "No time for feelings in logistics." That was the line I always gave. It was easier than explaining what I actually did, because when I had tried years ago, no one really listened. Dinner was 2 hours away, and already I was counting down the minutes like I was back in a deployment bunker. Ashley's voice followed me like static. "Honestly, I don't even know what Claire does. Something with spreadsheets and clipboards, right?" Mom giggled. She's always been good with details. I froze in the hallway, suddenly staring at my reflection in a dusty mirror. They didn't see me. Not really. Not as the soldier I was. Just the sister who never settled down. And for a moment, I wondered if this was the year I finally just left early and never came back. I was hiding in the kitchen, pretending to be deeply fascinated by the slightly burnt edges of a pecan pie when Ashley's voice cut through the air like broken glass. "So Claire," she said, loud enough for the entire house to hear, "you still doing that government thing? What is it again? Mail sorting? Or do you finally get to push buttons at the Pentagon?" More laughter. I didn't even look at her. She knew what I did, or she didn't want to. That's how she got away with these jabs. Pretending not to know gave her room to mock. Mom chimed in like she always did with a smile and a backhanded compliment. "It's stable at least. Government jobs are good for single women." My jaw tightened. I didn't reply. What was the point? I had been in uniform for over a decade, served 3 administrations, logged more hours in deployment than most of them had spent watching HGTV. But in this house, I was just the single one who forgot to bring homemade dessert. Jeremy perked up. Hey, Claire, what's your 401k like? Do you get danger pay for dealing with TSA? Leave her alone, Aunt Linda said, trying to mediate, but her voice was soft and no one really heard her. Ashley leaned over the island, swirling wine in her glass like she was hosting a Bravo special. I'm just saying, if you're still wearing combat boots after 30, maybe it's time to rethink the plan. And that did it. I set the spoon down. The clang against the ceramic pie dish echoed louder than I meant it to. Everyone paused briefly, like they were trying to gauge whether I was going to explode or slink away. Instead, I just stood there, eyes on the floor. My hands were steady, but something in my chest cracked a little, because I realized no matter what I'd done, no matter how many operations I'd run or missions I'd led, these people would always think I just stalled. Like I missed the marriage boat, failed the mom test, and took a boring desk job as consolation. And worst of all, they didn't even care that they were wrong. I stepped away from the counter, grabbed my phone, and headed for the hallway. I didn't know where I was going. Maybe the porch, maybe the car, maybe I'd disappear entirely. But then my phone buzzed. One buzz, then another. The screen lit up with something I hadn't seen in months, not outside of a secure briefing room. F1 rerouted. Temporary ground command authorized. I stared at the screen. My breath caught. Air Force One had been diverted, and I was the closest active logistics officer in the radius. I blinked, looked up. Ashley was still laughing. She had no idea the next 30 minutes would change everything. I slipped out the side door and into the chilly dusk air, my fingers already dialing the secure line. The porch light flickered behind me like some haunted warning, but I didn't stop. The connection clicked instantly. This is Major Claire Morgan. Confirm reroute of F1. I'm on location. A pause. Then a low-clipped voice, command confirmed. You are now ground lead for emergency perimeter activation. That was it. That fast. I wasn't Claire, the awkward dinner guest, anymore. I was the lead officer for an active presidential diversion protocol initiated from the middle of a family reunion in suburban Illinois. I pulled my hair into a bun with the reflexes of a decade in the field. No mirror needed, no second thoughts. Then I grabbed my field tablet from the glove box of my truck because, yes, I carried it even when I was on leave. That's what they never understood. This job wasn't something I clocked in and out of. It lived in me. From the corner of my eye, I saw Ashley peek out through the blinds. Wine glass in hand, probably still smirking, probably ready with another comment about playing soldier. I didn't care. I was already pinging coordinates to State Patrol, requesting airspace clearance. Lincoln Regional would need to ground all civilian flights and initiate runway lockdown. This wasn't a drill. It wasn't training. And no one inside that house had the faintest clue what was unfolding 10 feet from the turkey. Aunt Linda opened the screen door behind me, holding a tray of napkins. Sweetie, are you okay out here? I turned, still holding the tablet. I need you to get everyone inside and keep them there. She blinked. Dinner's in 10. This isn't about dinner anymore. She hesitated, her eyes flicking to the screen in my hands, the low glow of tactical overlays and flashing signals. Claire, what's going on? But before I could answer, the faint chop of helicopter blades echoed through the sky. They were early. I stepped onto the lawn, raising a hand to signal. A swirl of leaves kicked up. The first National Guard chopper broke through the clouds like something out of a war film. It banked hard, descended fast, and kicked dust across the lawn furniture. Ashley's decorative pumpkins tumbled across the grass. Inside, someone screamed, probably Jeremy. And suddenly, there were boots on the ground. Two soldiers emerged from the aircraft, geared focused, moving with precision. Major Morgan, one of them called out. Here I answered, assignment perimeter, lockdown, east and south sectors, full airspace control within 5-mile radius. They nodded and moved. No questions, no second guesses, not like the people still gathered around the cranberry sauce. Behind me, I could hear Ashley shout over the chaos, Claire. What the hell is going on? Is this a prank or something? I didn't answer. Didn't have time to explain geopolitics to someone who thought TikTok was a news source. I was on comms with Secret Service now. ETA on the president 42 minutes. Every second counted. I stood in the middle of the backyard, hair-tight boots, firm radio buzzing, and for the first time since I walked through that door earlier today, I felt like myself again. Not the sister, not the disappointment, the commander. The second helicopter arrived faster than expected. The blades thundered above like war drums, rattling the window frames and setting off a car alarm down the street. Folding chairs toppled over. Aunt Linda's sweet tea pitcher took a direct hit from a rogue napkin. I didn't flinch. My hand was already in the air, guiding the second crew into position. The soldiers disembarked swiftly, eyes sharp, movements clean. These were people who understood urgency, who didn't need me to explain that a reroute of Air Force One in a civilian zone meant this was no damn joke. But inside the house, the disbelief hadn't cracked yet. Jeremy leaned out the front door, recording with his phone. Yo, what's going on out there? Is this like a drill? Claire, are you LARPing? I marched straight up the porch, snatched the phone from his hand, and checked the screen. Live. Of course. I ended the feed and tossed the phone back. You open another app, I'll have you detained in the back of that black Suburban until we're wheels up. He opened his mouth to argue until he noticed the Secret Service agent behind me, arms folded, gaze flat and deadly. Jeremy turned pale and disappeared inside without a word. Good choice. I stepped back out just in time to catch the arrival of the command SUV. A sleek black vehicle with DC plates and zero chill. The door swung open and a tall man in a dark suit stepped out. Coiled earpiece, dead serious eyes. He scanned the scene, then locked onto me. Major Morgan confirmed. You're assuming temporary command for LZ Bravo. Yes, ground secured perimeter establishing now. He handed me a tablet. Live feed from Air Force One. Altitude decreasing. ETA 35 minutes. He didn't stay to chit-chat. Didn't need to. That's how I knew this was real. Behind me, I heard the unmistakable sound of a wine glass cracking. Ashley. She stood frozen in the doorway, still clutching the stem like it might anchor her to reality. You're serious, she said finally. I didn't turn around. Yes. Mom was still fussing over dinner, oblivious. Are the mashed potatoes too runny? She asked as if national security was a side dish. I stepped inside for one last announcement. Everyone needs to stay indoors. No phones, no lights near windows. This is now a federal operations zone. They blinked at me like I'd spoken in tongues. Uncle Frank adjusted his belt and sat down slowly. Aunt Linda clutched her pearls. Ashley scoffed. Claire, seriously, you're having a meltdown over what air traffic. I pulled my military ID from my back pocket and held it high. Major Claire Morgan, United States Army. Temporarily assigned as ground commander due to an emergency reroute of Air Force One. Silence. Then, "You're joking," Jeremy said, but no one laughed this time. Outside, the third helicopter crested the horizon. Dust flew. My earpiece crackled. Ground team confirm visual lock. Standby for full control handover in T-5. Inside the house, mouths hung open. Not because they understood, but because they didn't. And for the first time, that terrified them. I was standing at the far end of the lawn scanning the perimeter on my field tablet when I heard laughter. Not just any laugh, Ashley's. It floated across the garden like a foghorn in a war zone. I turned. She was standing near the patio, arms crossed, camera pointed at her own face. "Okay, guys, get this," she said into her phone. "Apparently, my little sister is in charge of protecting the president, right here, in our backyard, like it's a Jason Bourne sequel no one asked for." I froze. No. No, no, I sprinted toward her, heart pounding. Ashley put the phone down. She didn't even flinch. "Relax, Claire. You're always so secretive. It's time the family knows what you actually do. You're live streaming a restricted security operation," I said, my voice flat, lethal. "Shut it down. Now." She rolled her eyes. "God, you're being so dramatic. Nobody cares about our sleepy little town." "Wrong!" A voice behind her, sharp as a blade. That stream had geolocation enabled. She turned. The Secret Service agent was right there, eyes like steel. "You just turned this entire zone into a target. Congratulations." Her mouth opened, closed. "I need that phone," he said. She looked at me, betrayed. "You're seriously siding with him over your own sister?" "No," I said. "I'm siding with the nation I swore to protect." She didn't resist as the agent took the device. But her face, it crumpled, indignant, embarrassed, and finally afraid. I turned back to the tablet. My comms lit up with a new alert. Unauthorized image detected. Internal civilian transmission flagged. Scrambling signal now. Full lockdown authorized. Alarms buzzed in my earpiece, subtle but deadly serious. "We need to sweep the grid." "Now," I said. Ashley stood rooted in place. "Claire, I didn't mean—" "You never do outside the frequency jammers engaged. Every phone, every router, every Wi-Fi signal in a 3-mile radius went dark." But the damage had already rippled. 27 minutes earlier, Ashley had sent a photo to someone named Jay, a man she'd matched with online, a journalist or so, he claimed. Now we had a breach, and we had no idea who else had seen it. A few minutes later, one of the drones flagged movement. A man crouching behind the tree line, with gear. I keyed into command. Possible recon. Approaching northwest perimeter. No engagement unless threat confirmed. My hands were cold, my stomach twisted. Ashley stood nearby, arms wrapped around herself like a scared kid. "Was he dangerous?" she asked, barely audible. "I don't know," I said, but he knew where to look. "Because of you." She didn't argue, didn't cry, just stood there. And for once, Ashley Morgan, the woman who always had the last word, had nothing left to say. I crouched near the hedges at the far end of the backyard, right where my cousin's kids had been tossing a football an hour ago. Now it was a surveillance point. The drone feed on my tablet showed a lone figure kneeling near the drainage ditch behind the old church lot. The thermal signature was clear. A civilian frame, backpack, something long and metallic mounted on a tripod. Not a lost hiker. Not a coincidence. I keyed into Echo Team. Target confirmed. Suspected transmitter. No visible weapon, but high threat probability. Proceed with suppression. Copy, moving. Through the trees I spotted them, 3 soldiers in tactical gear ghosts in motion. They converged on the figure in 10 seconds flat. No shots, no shouting, just swift controlled force. The man never stood a chance. He went down quietly, equipment confiscated, wrists zip-tied. But the chill in my spine didn't leave. I walked back toward the house, boots crunching over gravel, my brain running every worst-case scenario on loop. Ashley was sitting on the porch now, hands clasped her face, pale and tight. "Did they catch him?" she asked. "Yes." "Was he gonna hurt someone?" I looked at her. "I don't know." "But he wasn't here by accident." She swallowed hard, nodded, and for once didn't try to make herself the victim. Then came the next hit. A guard tech jogged up with a clipboard. "Major, he said we flagged his prints. He's linked to a domestic extremist group. 2 prior attempts at disrupting federal logistics hubs. This was the first time he got this close." My mouth went dry. What was the plan? We're still parsing his gear. Signal booster encrypted relay. Maybe trying to leak the landing site. Maybe worse. I didn't wait. Triple lockdown north perimeter. No movement without direct clearance. The tech nodded and sprinted off. Inside the house, I could hear voices rising. Jeremy and Aunt Linda arguing about whether we were prisoners. I stepped through the back door. "You're not prisoners," I said sharply. "You're under protection." "There's a difference," Jeremy sneered. "Oh, come on, Claire. This isn't Baghdad. You're not in a war zone." I didn't even blink. "I'm always in a war zone." "You just don't see it because it's not yours." He opened his mouth again, but then the house went quiet. Every router phone and light powered by unsecured signal had just gone dark. The lockdown was total, and it was necessary, because this was no longer about logistics. This was about lives. Ashley appeared in the hallway, her voice low. "I didn't know it was this serious." I stared out the window. "I've been telling you my whole life. You just never listened." Her eyes welled. "I thought you were just distant, cold, better than us." "No, I wasn't distant. I was deployed." The radio crackled. "Air Force One final approach. ETA 6 minutes." I took a deep breath and stepped onto the porch. My eyes scanned the perimeter, the vehicles, the field beyond the hedgerow. And for the first time all day, I realized something. They weren't looking through me anymore. They were looking at me. The wheels hit the ground with a soft thud like the earth had been holding its breath. From the porch, I watched as Air Force One rolled across the improvised landing zone, our old town's football field, now transformed into a tactical site surrounded by armored SUVs and armed escorts. Major Morgan, a Secret Service agent, said behind me, "POTUS would like to greet you personally." I blinked. "He wants to come here." He nodded. 60 seconds, then we resume protocol. I adjusted my jacket, heart pounding not from nerves, but from the strange weight of what this moment meant. Not just to me, but to them. I stepped down into the grass boots, leaving dry square prints in the dirt. The aircraft stairs lowered, and there he was, President Grant. He moved with purpose. No fanfare, no flourish, just a man used to being where things mattered. When he reached me, he extended a hand. "Major Morgan," he said, voice low and steady, "your reports came through command. We owe you for today." I took his hand. "Just doing my job, sir." He leaned in slightly, his voice dropping to a whisper only I could hear. "Doing your job kept me alive. That doesn't go unnoticed." Then he pulled back, gave a crisp nod, and returned to his team. And just like that, he was gone. The wind picked up behind him, carrying the sound of footsteps, engine hum, and 100 quiet gasps from the porch behind me. I turned slowly. They were all standing there. Mom, Ashley, Jeremy, Rachel, even little Noah Mouth, slightly open, his Transformers hoodie flapping in the breeze. Not a single one of them said a word. They didn't need to. Ashley stepped down the stairs first. Her voice was thin. He thanked you, yes, I said, in front of all of us, yes. She blinked like she was still buffering. I used to make jokes about your job, she said. I thought you were just shipping boxes in a desert somewhere. You never asked, I replied. Her mouth opened, then closed. I'm sorry, she said. Quiet. Real. I gave her a nod. That was enough. Jeremy shuffled forward, hands in his pockets. Okay, he mumbled. I probably owe you an apology, too. Probably, I echoed. He chuckled nervously. Definitely. Even Mom came forward. She didn't say much, just reached out, took my hand, and whispered, I didn't know. I squeezed her fingers. Now you do. From across the street, neighbors stood watching. A kid waved. Someone clapped once, uncertain. But this wasn't about them. It was about us. Not a parade, not a medal ceremony, just recognition long overdue. Later, after the motorcade cleared, Ashley handed me a cup of coffee, still hot. Are you sleeping here tonight? She asked. I shook my head. Debrief at the base. She nodded. You're better than I ever gave you credit for. I wasn't looking for credit. I know. We stood in silence as soldiers packed the last antenna into a case. The sun was sinking. The birds returned. The house behind us looked the same as it always had. But nothing inside it would ever be the same again. Because finally they saw me. Not just as their sister, daughter, or cousin, but as someone who showed up when it mattered most. I didn't return home to be seen. I came because it was Thanksgiving. Because no matter how far I'd gone, a part of me still hoped they'd care enough to ask. But they never did, until they had no choice. It took helicopters, locked airspace, a presidential motorcade, and a near breach of national security for them to realize I wasn't just the quiet one with a weird job. I was the person who stood between chaos and control, the one who acted when no one else knew what to do. They mocked my uniform. Now they salute it quietly, awkwardly, but sincerely. And no, I didn't need their approval. But it's amazing how much lighter silence feels when it's finally filled with respect. So, what would you do if your family dismissed everything you worked for until the President of the United States showed up to prove them wrong? Would you forgive them? Would you walk away? Or would you stand tall and say, I've been this person all along, you just weren't looking? Let me know in the comments. And if you've ever been the underestimated one in your family, like, share, subscribe. There's more to come.